Building downtown. Building downtown.
We have, the chance to speak to somebody who works in law enforcement. It's such a unique thing. So between the three of us, it's not like we planned this out. I think I can speak for the three of us. We have a ton of stuff to ask you just out of curiosity, but I don't want to bury what this, what the big matter is. So let's get to that before we get to all the questions about the actual job and whether they be funny questions, humorous, interesting, curiosity, whatever. So you become a police officer. Things are going great. You're liking it. Things are going along. Take us through your career up until where things started to go left.
So right off the bat, going to the police college, there were certain things that really was alarming to me because, I had worked in the industry, in policing, not policing, but like security field, worked around men. And I knew what was, expected and what was not. So going, from when I started Ontario Police College, the tone of some of the supervisors was really sexist. For example, they would tell us, I remember one day we were in ethics class or something, and there was a sergeant, a male sergeant and a female sergeant. And the female sergeant said, ladies, you should close your legs on the job. Don't be a cushion. Don't be a metro mattress. And it was just such a funny thing to some people. And I just felt, yeah, it was pretty disgusting. And, and they said to the guys that alcohol and women will get you in trouble on the job. So
what the fuck?
Yeah. So things like that. I saw there was some supervisors that were inappropriate with the cadets. Just the power imbalance alone, is just didn't seem right that these officers are having these relationships with these, young recruits.
Mm-hmm. So wait, it's safe to say that from the very beginning, it was clear to you that this was a good old boys club for sure.
Oh, absolutely. But you don't really know to what extent until you're doing it. Yeah. And so it starts slow. And so when you have so many different factors coming at you, you got to learn stuff, you got to learn, I'm going home reading the criminal code, so I'm not really thinking about my married colleague trying to get me to have sex with him. So, over time, things just build up and you put it aside because of the policing is a very serious career. You have people's lives in your hands. So you don't want to go to work upset. You don't want to be angry. You don't want to be pissed off with your colleagues. And, so you have to kind of tame yourself and learn to numb yourself to a lot of these feelings. As a woman, especially as a racialized woman, you notice these things very quickly. And one of the things I noticed was that they were hiring officers, white police officers. They played hockey with them, young recruits. They were getting positions in learning opportunities that black officers, that racialized officers were not getting with 7 years on the job. And these things adds up at the end. Everything goes on your resume. So these guys are getting these opportunities and we're being left behind. And so whenever you bring it up, it's like, oh, you're pulling the race card, you're pulling the woman card, you're pulling this card. So it's like you can't really say anything because you're fucked if you do and you're fucked if you don't. So those things I started noticing. I noticed a lot of my female colleagues, were also dealing with sexual harassment. It was the same officers that joked about stuff. I worked in the booking hall where there was pornography magazines all over the place. And it was just on and on, toxic environment. And, you just put up with it because you become a police officer to do what you love doing, not to come to work and fight with your colleagues. And it's not the same as you can't really tell the guy to fuck off because you work with him. And these people some of them have fragile egos and, they get hurt easily. And before you know, there's rumors about this. And so it was just a combination of bullshit.
I gotta tell you, I've not had the experiences you have had that I'm aware of. But I have, in a previous lifetime, worked as an EMT, and I also used to work ER. We also used to work with first responders and the cops. And I got to say that it couldn't possibly be any more true that you can't, especially when you're younger in your career and when you're starting off, not that you can't say anything, but that it is extremely difficult to even consider balancing that with actually getting your foot in the door and even starting your career before it ends itself. And it's a crazy balance to have to strike, and that's the way it's set up, that you can't avoid being in that position is even crazier, but that's an absolute fact. In fact, one of the jobs I had, I did tell somebody to fuck off, as you just described, and was immediately in a different department within a week.
Absolutely. And they make us feel like you should be happy you're here. This is a male-driven environment. You should expect something like some kind of abuse. You should suck it up and learn and put your head down. But, the problem with doing that is it just, this type of behavior just grows. And the more you're in that environment, the more you become bad. Like you become a toxic person. You become enabler. You become one of them. And, not to sound like there's a lot of bad officers, there's a lot of good officers, but the bad ones are bad and they're protected. I'm talking about the mayor sits on the police board. You have city councilors, and either they don't know what's going on or they're just turning a blind eye to what's going on. But
so how is this set up? And maybe all three of you could answer this. This is a very American question, but when it comes to like law enforcement, now you're also talking about politics and civic leaders when you're getting into mayors and city council and all that. But like here, cops are a city job or a federal job. I mean, they're unionized. Some of them are private employers. Is everything federally regulated? Like, how is that set up there? Is everybody under the same general umbrella, from the mayor to the city council to the cop? Like, how is it set up?
So the city council are city councilors. They have districts, so they have areas, and some of them are sitting on the police board. And I'm specifically talking about the Toronto Police Board. So we have city councilors and we have our mayor sitting on the board. We're police officers, so we're under something else, and we have a union. So we are under the Police Services Act. We have a union who's supposed to represent us all equally. And that's not what's happening. So, for example, if I was sexually assaulted as a policewoman, I have to go to my union, and my union has to, my police service has to investigate. Everything is under the Police Services Act. Criminal charges are laid based on investigation. So you really wonder who's doing the investigation. And oftentimes it's themselves doing the investigation. They're not talking to everybody.
They're investigating themselves.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same as here. It's unionized, and there's no independent review or investigation.
Sometimes you hear other police service, they're supposed to investigate other police services, and sometimes they do. Toronto Police is weird because I had to call myself. I called SIU, I called OPP, I called RCMP, and every time it was like, nope, the chief is not going to allow the investigation. RCMP wouldn't even tell me their badge numbers. Like, it's crazy. So I filed a human rights complaint in 2018. And, this was years after I kept coming forward and talking to supervisors and, bringing these issues forward, because it wasn't just happening to me. I was seeing my friends, my colleagues getting sick. I had a couple of my colleagues had told me that they were suicidal.
Jesus.
Yes, it's a very hostile environment. So
is this going on in like different precincts, different divisions, or is this happening? Do you know? Now, the reason I'm asking him is it's to me, right, from a logic standpoint, it would be really hard to fight a division where you're against everybody, right? So my first thought is to run and try to fit in somewhere else, maybe. You know what I mean? Try to find a spot where I fit in instead of fighting a bunch of guys at a spot where like they're obviously against me.
So here's, and that's a very good question.
Or did you decide, or did you just say, fuck it, I'm staying here to fight?
Getting gangsta.
Well,
No, I'm. That's a real question. I'm just trying to. I'm trying to figure.
It's a good question.
I'm trying to figure out how to say it right without sounding like a dick. You know what I mean? But I'm trying to say, like, it seems like fighting a bunch of guys at this spot would not be a win. It would be a very hard win, anyways. I would try to bounce off somewhere else, maybe try to find a spot to fit in. Did you have that thought?
so initially when I, talked to my supervisors about these issues, I spoke with my union. He was a supervisor and also a union steward. I didn't know that I was going to be kicked down the road like a fucking can.
Mm.
And so nobody knows what's going to happen to them until they file a complaint, until they say something.
Oh, I see.
And the way police services is that they keep everything so quiet. I had no idea who was off. I mean, other than my own division, I had a couple of, colleagues from other divisions I kept in touch with because, we went to school together, or I saw them on radio calls in a neighboring division. So, we kept in touch. But from what I was told from other divisions, it was the same issues. Women were facing these issues. And there was a...
So you think switching up would not change anything? It would just be the same shit, different day?
Well, it would be
Different
new
division?
guys now. It would be just a new bunch of guys sending you there,
Wow.
I mean, it would be that way if you came down to Ohio, So.
Building downtown. Building downtown. Building downtown.